We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip. When it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Arr, fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
America's two great pastimes collide on this podcast. It is baseball and making money. From the dog days of summer through the October Classic, Greg Bases Peterson's going to be free swinging at the betting board as he tries to hit a grand slam for your bankroll. Now here is GP.
A happy Thursday to one and all. Greg Peterson broadcasting from the Azuñia Tequila Studios for MLB Overtime Betting. We've got a terrific show. It's Mike Ferrin of SiriusXM's MLB Network radio coverage is going to be joining me in the second segment. He also does a lot of work covering the Arizona Diamondbacks, so that's going to be a lot of fun as the Diamondbacks have been a very interesting team so far this year. In the final segment, I'm going to give you a side and total on every game on today's betting board and a little bit of something I like to call touch 'em all. But first, you guys had a lot of questions for me on Twitter, so this is going to be a lot of my recap from yesterday. So we're going to get into the Twitter mailbag.
So you have questions, and Greg may or may not have any insight into them, but let's dive into the Twitter mailbag.
The first is actually not really a question. It was someone that was pointing out a play that might be on the board for today between the Marlins and the Reds. Someone had pointed out that the Marlins are 0-17 in their last Thursday games, and I had a couple people ask me if I take a look at trends in that case, and my answer is no. Especially for one, it dates back for like 2+ years, and with a team like the Marlins, a lot of the players that were on the team back when that streak started are no longer on the team, so it's not like you've got a team that's been around for a long time, like the Red Sox that have been tightly knit and everything like that. You've got a new team, and for two, they're just some weird baseball stats that you can't stick any stock into. You can find a stat for anything like, oh, this starting pitcher is 5-1 in his last 8 starts when the wind is blowing between 10 to 15 miles an hour, and the temperature is approximately 42 to 45 degrees Fahrenheit while playing in the city of Boston with the president in town. I mean, it's like some of those stats where it's like, really? You really had to dive deep for that one. So there are just some of those stats that I cannot really take seriously. A question that I got from Shamus Ignoramus, you can follow him on Twitter, that is the letter I, the letter M, the name Rob, R-O-B, 79, and he asked, at June_81, in the case of Seattle versus Kansas City, over 9, this is from yesterday's game, -110, would you have waited for 9.5 at even money if you knew it was coming, or did you see more value at the 9 rather than the juice savings? And this is one where it depends on the situation for me. If I would have been able to get a 9.5 at plus money, I probably would have taken the 9.5 personally. And it is one of those games where there are some games where that half a run, it's very significant. You see like a 6-4 game coming or something like that. You probably want that 9. If you think that it's going to be a total slugfest, the game is at Coors Field, you've got a couple gas cans on the mound, you think that these teams are just going to be going all home run derby, then you just take the plus price. It's one of those things where I sort of evaluate it game by game. I typically don't pick exact final scores on baseball games. I sort of have a range I take a look at, and it's one of those things where the actual total is something that you have to look at as well. The difference between 7 and 7.5, 6.5 to 7, much more significant than, say, 9 to 9.5, 10 to 10.5, things of that nature, just because when you get down to the lower scoring games, that half a run is a lot more significant. That is at least my opinion on it. I do have sort of a value that between 6.5 to 7 might be worth a couple more cents than, say, the jump from 9 to 9.5 or 9.5 to 10, something along those lines. So hopefully that does make sense. I thought that was a very good question because I am one of those people. I do try to save as much juice as possible. And then another question that I had asked me by a guy by the name of Tony B. You can follow him on Twitter at TonyB441. How much of the money line is influenced by a home team losing the first 2 games of a series? Like, for example, yesterday's Rays versus White Sox game, and I don't think it's actually too much. The bookmakers, I don't feel like put a whole heck of a lot of stock in teams that are down 0-2, and I actually had someone else tell me that they like to be able to back teams that are at home and they lose first 2 games of a series. And for me, it all depends on the situation. We saw it with the Rays versus the White Sox games. The Rays just absolutely slapped around the White Sox. Ronaldo Lopez got shelled. The Tampa Bay Rays were just scoring runs in every inning. It was just a festival at the plate for them. They had their pitching going. Tyler Glasnow had a very good outing. It all depends on the situation. Just because a team is down 0-2 doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to automatically win the third game. And the bookmakers, I don't feel like put a whole lot of stock into that either. So when I take a look at a lot of these prices, I do it game by game. You have to think that there is a little bit of a doofer theory out there where a team is eventually going to be able to win one of those games, but with that said, it's not something that I put a whole lot of stock into because every game is its own living, breathing entity, in my opinion, and you have to take a look at the actual matchup, not just, oh, this team lost 3 straight games, they were going to bounce out of it, or, oh, this team lost 3 straight games, they're definitely going to win today. It's just one of those things where I look at it situation by situation. I had another question from a guy by the name of Kota Bear. He is on Twitter at Mr_Longfellow, all one word, Longfellow, and there's an underscore at the end of that. And he was asking about playing run/no run in the first inning. He felt like there was a lot of value on no first run in the game between the Cleveland Indians and the Detroit Tigers, and these are bets I definitely stay away from. We saw just how volatile these were yesterday. That Reds versus Marlins game, the Reds have the bases loaded without 1 out. Lewis Brinson makes a great catch in the outfield. He's able to throw a guy out, and that leads to a double play in which you really should have gotten a run in that inning. And heck, in that same inning, Jose Iglesias makes just a terrific play to rob the Marlins of runs in that game as well. Marlins, oh, by the way, losing that game by a count of 2-1. That was a heartbreaker as the Reds were able to get 2 home runs in the 8th inning as they were down 1-0 in that game. I thought that was a very interesting result, but getting back to the task at hand, this is one of those bets where I just don't like playing first innings, especially if you're laying juice on one side or the other, just because these first innings are a crapshoot. We saw in that game between the Indians and the Tigers, a game in which the Tigers won. Matthew Boyd continues to be a good pitcher. Trevor Bauer gives up 4 runs, so there's your recap on that. Cleveland Indians left 9 men on base and went 1 of 9 with men in scoring position, but it's one of those things where I just avoid playing first inning props like that just because anything can happen. One bad pitch can lead to your entire bet being torpedoed. And like we just saw, some of those great defensive plays, it can rob you if you do take the run in the first inning too. So it's one of those things I stay away from. I also like to stay away from F5s just because I like to let the full game play out. I just seem to be someone that I can zero in on these bullpens, and full game bets work better for me. I don't like playing first 5s, and I definitely don't like first innings just because they just feel like a little bit too much of a crapshoot. And then with regards to moving totals, we saw this in the Baltimore Orioles versus Oakland A's game. I took under 10.5 runs. Obviously, that didn't quite pan out for me. I had someone by the name of Dylan Johnson at DylanJ925 is his Twitter handle. He was asking when I would start to look at the over on the Oakland versus Baltimore game because I had under 10.5 runs at even juice. I was able to get that right when the line was posted because, as we remember, this was a game that was off the board when I was doing my podcast yesterday. And my answer was at 9.5 and even juice because what you'd be able to do is if you took that under 10.5 at even and then you have over 9.5 at even, you essentially have a chance to be able to win both bets while having absolutely nothing at risk. Obviously, that's going to be a winner for the year because think about it. If it winds up being the score that it was, and it was the A's just completely dismantling the Baltimore Orioles, everyone was going yard. Chris with a K Davis went deep twice. Jerickson Profar went deep. I believe that Chad Pinder had a home run. I mean, it was just a hit parade for the A's. If something like that happens, your over cashes and your under does not. But let's say it would have been a 7-3 game. You win both bets. You had absolutely nothing at risk, and you were in a no-loss situation right there. It is something to where sometimes with the totals, you'll notice when I do my Touch 'em All segment that the juice is shaded so many different ways at different books. You can get a lot of even money juice on a total if you just look in the right spots and you use multiple books. I always encourage you guys to use multiple books because the juice shading on these totals is going to be so different. Sometimes you can get an over of minus 120 on 9, and then at a different book, it might be at like minus 105. It's just such a good way to be able to put yourself in a no-loss situation, have a chance to be able to win both bets if a total moves. So it is something that I do advocate for if you're one of those people I'd like to try to middle. So I thought that was a tremendous question as well. And now let's take a look back at some of the results from yesterday. We already did a lot of them, but let's get into a few more.
What happened yesterday? Let's go around the bases and find out.
The Texas Rangers were able to get a nice win over the Arizona Diamondbacks by a count of 5-2. In this one, the Texas Rangers got down a little bit early, but they did a very good job of being able to hold the Arizona Diamondbacks bats at bay. We're going to be talking to Mike Ferrin a little bit more about this, but something that you did have to like to see for the Arizona Diamondbacks, Eduardo Escobar was able to get his first home run of the year, and for the Texas Rangers, their bullpen continues to be great. Lance Lynn was able to go 6 strong innings, gave up 1 run, had 9 Ks. Jose Leclerc, he continues to be a little bit shaky. He gave up another run in this one after blowing a save a few days ago, but they were able to shut the door, and they were able to get Hunter Pence going. He went deep in this game for his first home run of the year. And Lionel DeShields Jr. actually had 2 hits in this game and an RBI. The Angels were without Mike Trout, and yet they were able to knock off the Milwaukee Brewers and sweep that series by a count of 4-2. Very, very intriguing as to what happened there, as Christian Yelich was able to have 2 RBI in this game, but the offense really did not get going. Felix Pena actually gave a decent start for the Angels. He went 4 innings. He gave up 1 run, none of which was earned, and then Jose Barria was able to come in for 2.2 innings. He gave up 1 earned run, and he was able to get the win. Cam Bedrosian and Robles continue to be great out of the bullpen. The LA Angels, oh, by the way, have the best bullpen ERA out there in the majors. Justin Bour was able to drive in 2 runs in this game, and Andrelton Simmons actually had an RBI as well. He seems to be getting going, and the LA Angels now all of a sudden 7-6. You can continue to fade Yu Darvish, ladies and gentlemen, as the Pittsburgh Pirates were able to hang a 5-2 win on the Chicago Cubs. In this one for the Cubs, Jason Hayward was able to go yard. That is his 5th home run of the year. He continues to get the job done, but the Cubs in this game were just 1 of 8 with men in scoring position. Yu Darvish gives up 5 runs, 4 of which were earned in 5.1 innings. The bullpen actually looked good for the Cubs. They didn't give up a single run, but Jordan Lyles looked absolutely sensational in this game. He went 6 innings, had 10 strikeouts, gave up 1 earned run. Jordan Lyles is a guy that I felt like didn't necessarily get the best of shakes when he was with the San Diego Padres. He seems to have found new life with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He might have some value down the line. Something that doesn't have value is the Kansas City Royals bullpen, as the Seattle Mariners were able to win the game 6-5. The Royals bullpen actually only gave up 1 run after Heath Fillmyer gave up 5 earned runs in 3 innings. They had a couple guys come in like Barlow, Ian Kennedy, and Jake Diekman, but Brad Boxberger, who blew so many saves for the Arizona Diamondbacks, now has an ERA of 8.44. He winds up giving up a 9th inning home run to Mitch Haniger. That was his 3rd home run of the year. The Seattle Mariners just continue to be cashing overs left, right, and sideways. This is a team that is probably the best story in baseball right now. 12-2 so far. That's absolutely sensational. The Dodgers drop another one. They lose 7-2 to the St. Louis Cardinals. And the Cardinals' bats seem to have really gotten going, as in this one it was Yadier Molina getting his first home run of the year. Marcell Ozuna went deep for his 3rd home run of the year. Paul DeJong was able to generate 3 hits as well. So a very good sign there. And then for the Dodgers, Kenta Maeda roughed up 5.1 innings, gave up 5 runs, all of which were earned. The bullpen actually looked decent for the Dodgers, aside from JT Charigos. With the Dodgers, it's just so intriguing with that bullpen. Some of their guys look good, some of them not so much. Another game we have yet to hit on, the Minnesota Twins. And talking about first fives and why you can't bet them, the Minnesota Twins, in the 5th inning of their game against the Mets, walked in 4 runs before Wilson Ramos wound up driving in a few himself. It was a 6-run 5th for the Mets. They win this game 9-6. Just absolutely amazing, because of the guys that walked in those runs, it was 3 different guys. Jake Odorizzi was just walking guys left and right. Vasquez comes in. He's unable to do anything. And then you bring in Trevor Hildenberg, and he walks in a run too. It's just absolutely incredible how bad these bullpens are. And something that I've noticed so far this year in baseball is that we're seeing more bases loaded walks than ever before. It's absolutely insane. And then one more game that we have to hit on. The San Diego Padres continue to get very good bullpen pitching themselves. They knock off the San Francisco Giants by a count of 3-1. Manny Machado was able to go deep. That is his third home run of the year. For the San Francisco Giants, it was a good sign that Kevin Pillar went deep. That was his second home run of the year, but the San Francisco Giants still not getting a lot of offense generated. Maybe Tyler Austin could be able to help them out with that, but Buster Posey and Evan Longoria both hitting below the Mendoza line. Eric Kratz hitting a $154. Just not going well for the Giants right now. That's a little bit of a recap of yesterday, and that's a whole bunch of answered questions while doing that recap. And now we've got to turn the page forward, and helping me do so and giving me a little bit more of a look at the intriguing Arizona Diamondbacks is Mike Ferrin. He does some hosting for them, and he also does a lot of work for SiriusXM's MLB Network Radio. He joins me next right here on MLB Overtime Betting.
Greg is going to the bullpen as he makes a call to the Azuña hotline.
And we're back here on MLB Overtime Betting. It is a great pleasure to be joined by our next guest. I had him on quite a bit last year when I was over at the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Great to have him on this podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at Mike_Ferrin, and Ferrin is spelled Ferrin. He does tremendous work as a host for the Arizona Diamondbacks, as well as MLB Network Radio, which you can hear on SiriusXM and so many other places as well. Mike just does terrific work, and he's joining me right now. And how are you doing on this fine day?
I'm good, Greg. How are you?
I'm doing terrific. Thank you. And something else that's doing quite terrific so far this year has been the bats of the Arizona Diamondbacks. I feel like a lot of people thought there might be a little bit of a dip when A.J. Pollock left the lineup and everything like that, but you've had a front row look as to just how good these bats are. How are they getting it done? Because it feels like 1 through 8 in the Diamondbacks lineup have just been mashing so far this year.
Yeah, it's been a really good start offensively, among the league leaders in runs scored. And, I think there's a couple things that they did in building this offense. I mean, you mentioned A.J. Pollock gone. Paul Goldschmidt has gone too, and trading him to St. Louis. And those are some major losses on the offensive side. And they brought in guys like Adam Jones, who has been off to a great start, and Wilmer Flores, and just tried to create some more depth offensively as much as anything. And, this hot start has happened without Steven Souza Jr., who they were counting on a bounce back from. Remember, he had 30 homers in 17, battled injuries last year, had a severe knee injury. The second to last day of the exhibition season is out for the year. And Jake Lamb, who's out 6 weeks with a strained quad, he played in just the first week worth of games. So I think it's because they're a higher contact offense that there are going to be times when they're putting the ball in play that they'll look good. I think they've had a really good game plan. They've been on heaters, and I think that they, will especially take advantage of maybe mediocre pitching. And I think that that's going to be something that helps to drive their offense. Now we'll see whether or not they have staying power. Certainly it's any 10-game sample can be looked at as a 10-game sample. Sometimes they have it at the beginning and it makes it look better than it is. And I think that was the question mark we had about this offense, was how good this offense would be coming into the year, but so far so good for them.
And the guy that's really impressed me in the middle of that lineup is David Peralta. Through the first 10 games of the season, he's hitting over 400. He's got a dinger already. Last year he had 30 home run and 87 RBI as well. What have you seen out of him? Because it feels like year after year, he's just continued to improve.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, he, and 8 doubles this season too, and he did have a tremendous offensive year, borderline all-star year last year. I thought he should have made the all-star team. I have a little bit of bias in that, admittedly, but I thought Peralta was more than deserving of it. But he is really, really good. And I think what you're seeing is a guy with tremendous bat speed, who has a really good plan at the plate, who is able to use the whole field. He isn't a huge strikeout guy, and he's a high-energy player. And when he gets locked in, he's the guy in that lineup that you look at and go, he and Ketel Marte are the ones that I think can really hit velocity. And I think that's one of the keys, is that, now it's kind of Peralta's offense and everything goes around him. And I do want to add Marte into that mix too. It was a slow start. He's picked it up late. He had the 2-homer game a couple of nights ago. I think overall Ketel Marte is their best player. And I think some of it shows up on the defensive side. They had to move him to center field because they lost Pollock and didn't really replace him with a center fielder. And he has been excellent in center field. He gets on base. He also doesn't strike out. And the power from the left side of the plate is starting to come. And that is something that's really interesting because he has always had some big thump from the right side. But left-handed the other night, Friday night against Boston, he hit a ball over the pool in right center field off Rick Porcello, 443 feet. It's not something we've seen a ton of. It's in there, and he's starting to unlock what I think is going to be a tremendous season for a guy that's locked up for a number of years.
I do agree with you there, as we've got Mike Ferrin joining me right here on MLB Overtime Betting. And something else I've noticed with the Arizona Diamondbacks is that the bullpen hasn't necessarily looked too bad so far to start this year. I remember Boxberger at the end of the year last year, he just was not getting the job done. He is obviously no longer with the team. But Archie Bradley, through the first 10 games so far this year, has not allowed a single earned run. I like what I'm seeing out of him. What have you noticed from the bullpen so far this year with the Diamondbacks?
I think it's been a little uneven to this point. I think they're going to pitch better at a group. Yoshi Hirano is a real key for them. Opponents have seemed to wait him out a little bit more than they did last year. I think they kind of know what his repertoire is. His first season from Japan, he was excellent. So I think there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period for Yoshi here. And, he's a veteran in his mid-30s and had a lot of success as a closer and reliever in Japan, so he will get it figured out. The things that really stand out, one, their walk totals are a little bit high, and I think that's something that they'd like to correct. Bradley's curveball looks tighter than it ever has been before. He hasn't generated the swings and misses with it yet that I think he can as the season goes on, and that's something that's really encouraging. Greg Holland has looked tremendous at the end of games. Very efficient. His slider has been excellent. And Yohan Lopez is a guy to keep an eye on. Remember, there was a big international signing going back to 2015 for the Diamondbacks in the previous administration. And, he walked away from the game or wanted to at one point, and he's had kind of a checkered history. But in the last year, he's really put it together as a reliever. And he has the best stuff of anybody in that bullpen, and he has pitched really well. So I think it's a sleeper bullpen. The starters have really rounded into shape over the last week, and I think it's a good rotation. I think that they will do a good job of preventing runs as a group. But that bullpen could be kind of the make or break as to whether or not they're going to stay in contention for a postseason berth.
I agree with you because the starters this year, let's face it, for the Diamondbacks, they have been a little bit shaky. Zach Godley had a little bit of a rough end to the year last year, and this year he hasn't quite looked like himself. I noticed that in the first start of the year, Zach Greinke had a little bit of a dip in velocity as well. I don't know whether that's dead arm or what that was, but he's looked better ever since that first start. And then I think the book is still out on Luke Weaver a little bit. He comes over in the offseason and that Paul Goldschmidt trade. What do you make out of the 5 starters for the Diamondbacks right now?
Well, in the games that they haven't played the Dodgers, they've had a 3.25 ERA. So that Dodgers offense is really good right now. So, Godley's coming off a very good start against Boston too. And I think, I thought Weaver's start was excellent. He had one inning where he kind of got nickeled and dimed a little bit and gave up 3 runs, but other than that was very good. And Merrill Kelly, who they signed out of Korea. Now this is a great story. It's a guy that grew up in the States, made it to AAA with Tampa. Actually, the product of ASU, went to high school in Scottsdale, and made it to AAA. Didn't get out into the 40-man roster, went to Korea, and the last 3 years in Korea, he's been in the top 10 in ERA, and that's a really good hitters league. And he came back, and in his first start, there were a little bit of nerves early, but he settled down, pitched well against San Diego, and won his debut. And he lost on Sunday, but it was 8 innings of 4-hit, 9-strikeout ball. He gave up a solo homer to Mitch Moreland. That was the only run of the game. And I think that they're pretty deep in that regard. I don't think Greinke's velocity was really all that much down from where it was for the most part last year. He doesn't pump a whole lot of 92s or 93s anymore. It's mostly 89 to 91. I think with him and a healthy Robbie Ray, I think the front of the rotation is in pretty good shape. But I think that group overall is trending in the right direction. And that to me was the strength of the team coming into this season, was their group of starters.
I agree with you there. And I feel like another team out there in that NL West, a big question mark is the starters of the San Diego Padres as well. They're right now taking on the San Francisco Giants. We know that during the weekend they're going to be taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think that's going to be a very intriguing series. Heck, in game 1 of the series, it's going to be Chris Paddock going for the San Diego Padres. I feel like the Dodgers are probably the number 1 team in this division. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. But I feel like everything else after that is a little bit of a jumbled mess, just because with the Diamondbacks, I feel like they might have the best roster and they have some good relief pitching, but I feel like the Padres might have a little bit of upside with all these young starters.
Well, the Padres have some, I think, offensive upside. I mean, I think this is the best Padres offense that they've put together in probably 20 years, and it's a very good offensive team. Colorado is the team that I felt like was almost certain playoff team coming into the season. Their starting pitching is excellent. I think their bullpen's a little underrated. I know they lost Ottavino from that group, but with Wade Davis finishing games, Scott Oberg is completely underrated, and Sungwon Oh, helping to finish, plus DJ Johnson, who's got a huge arm. I thought that they were going to be in a much better position. I had some questions about their offense, but I didn't realize that the questions were going to be this stark this early, and now a third of their opening day lineup is on the injured list between Dahl and McMahon and Daniel Murphy. So it's a little bit more up for grabs in that regard, but San Diego's going to score some runs. I think they have a good bullpen. I think their starters are going to struggle a little bit. Paddock is interesting. I've not seen him in person, so I'm really looking forward to seeing him pitch this weekend. And then beyond it, it's, Colorado is going to be really good at run prevention. Can they score enough? And I think that's kind of the question with the Diamondbacks too, is will this offense that's been so hot to open the year continue it for a full season? I think we'll have a better idea as we get into June.
I think so as well, as we've got Mike Ferrin joining me right here on MLB Overtime Betting. And I know that you obviously saw a whole lot of Paul Goldschmidt the past couple of years. He's now over there with the St. Louis Cardinals, and he's done a good job of being able to connect for home runs in the beginning part of the year. He's already got 5 home runs through 10 games as we're doing this broadcast, but he's hitting below 200. And something else that we noticed last year as well is it felt like he just wasn't necessarily doing the best job of being able to hit for contact. He had a couple home runs early, but he wasn't doing the best job of being able to hit for contact. What was really what got him going last year? And do you think that the same could hold true with him now in St. Louis?
Well, I mean, I think he had timing. Timing in his swing was really the major issue for Goldschmidt last year, early in the season. And I think once he got it ironed out, you saw him for a 3-month stretch. He was outstanding. I mean, you could make the argument he was the best player in the National League, really from about Memorial Day to Labor Day. I think if you look at some of the peripherals with Goldschmidt, they're right in line with what he's done over the course of his career. He's sporting a significantly higher walk rate than normal, but if you look at some of the advanced stats like weighted on base average, I mean, he's at 386, which is extremely high. His career average is 393 in that, and that takes on base percentage and slugging percentage and weights it in a manner that weights on base a little bit higher. It reads like on base. So he's hitting for power. He's slugging close to 600. I don't think the batting average is nearly that much of a concern to me for him. And listen, he's going to be a middle of the lineup presence, and I don't think that he's going to hit $189 all year. I also don't think that he's going to hit 105 on balls in play, which is what he's at right now. His career average on that is 350. So figure that there's a long way to go up for Paul Goldschmidt in this. And I would not be surprised if his final totals look similar to what they have the last 3 years, a batting average between 290 and 300, and on base percentage between 390 and 410, and a slugging percentage in the 550 range.
I'm right there with you. I think that he's going to be picking it up, and he's going to have another tremendous year. I think the big question is at this point when, just because I feel like every baseball player, no matter how great or bad you are, you sometimes have your highs, and then sometimes you're just in a little bit of a baseball ditch. But with that said, who's a team or two that has really impressed you so far this year? I can tell you right now, out there in the American League, I've been impressed by the start of the Seattle Mariners and the Detroit Tigers. Didn't necessarily expect that. Has there been a team or two that's really surprised you?
Well, I think Seattle's is the one that stands out because they've been so offensive. I mean, the first 12 games, they've had at least one homer in each one, and that's, to me, is one of the things that really stands out about them is that they have swung the bats extremely well. I would say that they're the team in the American League that is the one that just gets your attention right away. You can't help. I mean, listen, I don't know that you can find anybody else that's been a bigger surprise to this point. We'll see whether or not it lasts. I'm pretty skeptical about that. Again, I mean, we're dealing with 10, 12 games. It's a little bit tough, to try and project just based on that, especially when you have a team that's surprising. But among the likely contenders, the ones that have impressed me the most have been Tampa. I think that team is really good. Their pitching is excellent. Their offense has been very good. Tommy Pham, the Vegas native, is off to a great start. And then in the National League, the Phillies and Dodgers offenses are both really, really good. And I just think that Los Angeles offense is just a nightmare to try and work through. And it's probably not the sexiest pick to say, LA is one of those teams that you're really watching. But I'm not sure that lineup, when I saw them on opening weekend, has ever swung the bat better in a 4-game set. And that's kind of continued. And I think that they're a deep team. They're still the team to beat in the West, if not the National League. And that's a team that I think is, they are very scary. And if they can continue to put together at bats the way they did the course of that opening weekend, it's going to be a long year for a lot of National League pitchers.
I am right there with you. Both the Dodgers and the Phillies are just hitting the ball and just absolutely tattooing it. Would you say that those are the two best offenses in all of baseball? Because right now I have it as the Dodgers and the Phillies myself. I've been so impressed by both of them.
Yeah, I mean, to start, I mean, they're certainly the best ones in the National League. I mean, I think, well, I don't know. The Cubs offense has actually been really good. It gets lost in the shuffle because their pitching has been so bad.
Bullpen especially.
Yeah, bullpen especially. And now they've lost Lester to the injured list with a hamstring injury. So, I think that they're up there. I mean, I still think even with some of the injuries that they've suffered, the Yankees offense is really good. I think Houston's is starting to round into shape. I think Boston's going to be fine. It hasn't looked great for the Red Sox so far, but I really like the talent that they have on that team. So, those would kind of be the handful of teams that I would kind of put in that mix. And then, if you want a sleeper in that too, I think Atlanta. I think Ronald Acuna Jr. by the end of this season, we could be talking about him in the same vein we talk about Mike Trout. I honestly believe that. I think he is one of the most immensely talented players, and from a tool standpoint, he might be more tooled up than Trout was at the same point in his career. I mean, just in terms of he's not as fast as Trout, but you factor in power and the arm and the defense and everything in Acuna's game. I mean, I think he's a really dynamic presence, and I think that could help that Atlanta offense continue to continue to achieve at a high level, I should say.
Certainly a slow start for Acuna, but I feel like that home run on Monday against the Colorado Rockies might have been exactly what he needed.
I mean, you look at some of the data behind it, though, and he's among the league leaders in average exit velocity. He's among the league average and expected weighted on base average. You look at all the kind of predictive things, and it's a slow start statistically, but he's doing all the things that great players do. It just hasn't turned into results yet. It's small sample.
Absolutely. That's what you get when there's only 10 to 12 games of data to be able to look at.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Mike, I would like to close it up with this. Where can the good people out there find you on social media and elsewhere, since I know you do great work with both the Diamondbacks and MLB Network Radio?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Mike_Ferrin. That's where I'm at. And I generally like to take pot shots at my friends on there and will respond to kind inquiries. I'll respond to the angry ones too, but that's fine.
It is all good. We all know that there are some Twitter trolls out there and everything like that. There's always a lot of fun, and you deal with them very well. So a big thanks to Mike Ferrin for joining me right here on MLB Overtime Betting. And now coming up next, it is the time to give you a side and total on every game on today's MLB betting board as we touch them all.
Hey, I'm Steve Heitner, the guy who uttered the famous phrase, "That's gold." And that's the inspiration of my new podcast, That's Gold with Steve Heitner. We talk sports, sports betting, movies, comedy, food, drink, Vegas, music, movies, and more. 5 days a week. Did I say movies twice? Look, guys love it, whether they're hip or worried about breaking a hip. Find us on Apple and Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify and Stitcher. That's Gold with me, Steve Heitner.
Welcome back to MLB Overtime. Greg is throwing a gem, so yeah, he better not blow it.
And a big thanks to Mike Ferrin for joining me as we're back here on MLB Overtime Betting. Ferrin does terrific work out there with SiriusXM's MLB Network Radio, and he also is terrific with being able to give some insight on the Arizona Diamondbacks, which is so interesting because their game is off the board as of right now for today as we're back here in the Zunia Tequila Studios. But it is that time, even though this Thursday slate is a little bit shorter, to give you a side and total on every game for today, and we do so in a little something I like to call Touch 'em All.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch 'em all.
Note that any changes that are made to these plays is going to be noted on my Twitter page at @unit_81, and also some of these plays are locked in, some of these plays are not. That will also be noted on my Twitter page, as well as any flips on these games or anything of that nature. We start with 901, 902 on the betting rotation. The Miami Marlins are in Cincinnati to face off against the Reds. Sonny Gray goes for the Reds, and our good buddy Pablo Lopez goes for the Miami Marlins. Total on this one I am seeing is 8.5 across the board. Over and under both at -110. If you like the Miami Marlins, you're getting between +150 and +155. If you want to lay it with the Reds, that is between -163 and -170. This is a spot where I've got to take a shot here on the fish. I know that Pablo Lopez, not necessarily the Mona Lisa Vito of pitching, but he actually does a decent job of being able to limit hard contact. He's also got 12 strikeouts in 10.1 innings so far this year. I do think that he's got some pretty positive plus stuff. As long as he's able to keep the walks down, I do think that he's going to have some success. Sonny Gray looks like a better pitcher in Cincinnati than he has in recent years. Even though he is 0-2, it just looks like his command is a little bit better. He's been doing a better job of being able to limit the hard contact himself. So I do think that that's a little bit intriguing. We saw in the game yesterday between the Marlins and the Reds, both these teams pretty darn good at leaving men on base. We saw it in the first inning, we saw it in the second inning, and the Marlins in general not necessarily hitting well. But with the Reds, the question is, what are you going to get out of their bats as well? Eugenio Suarez, Joey Votto, you know that they're very reliable, but Tucker Barnhart feels like it's coming back to earth a little bit more as well. This is a total in which I've really got to look under just because I don't know which of these teams is going to be able to score 4 runs. I like Jose Alfaro, the catcher for the Miami Marlins. Going into Wednesday's action, he had 3 home runs and 6 RBI. Lewis Brinson has actually been hitting for this team, and JT Riddle's able to give them some pop, but JT Riddle not hitting for a high average. Dan Diedrich has a trio of home runs so far for the Reds. He's not hitting for a lot of average himself, and there's just so many questions with so many players in both of these lineups that it just leads to the under. Plus the Reds and the Marlins both have decent bullpens. I would say the Reds have a little bit of a leg up in regards to the bullpen, but I actually do think that Pablo Lopez is going to be able to give a good outing. And with the Marlins, I just think that there's a lot of value in this spot. So for that reason, I'm going to go with the massive plus price here with the Marlins, and I'm going to take this total under. I am in wait-and-see mode on both these numbers, though. I think I can get at least plus 160 on the Marlins, and I won't be surprised if I can get a little bit better juice on the under. 9:03, 9:04 on the betting rotation. It is the Dodgers in St. Louis face off against the Cardinals. Michael Waka Waka, which was very appropriate because he gave up 8 walks in his last start. Going for the Cardinals, Walker Buehler going for the LA Dodgers in the battle of walkers, I guess you could say. Waka versus Walker. I think that that's really interesting. Total in this game I am seeing is 8, and the 8 is shaded over between minus 110 and minus 115. If you like the under, that's between minus 105 and minus 110. If you want to take a shot on the St. Louis Cardinals, you're getting between plus 125 and plus 128. The Dodgers are between a minus 135 and minus 138 favorite. And even though Michael Waka really gave up the walks in his last start, this is a spot where I'm going to take the St. Louis Cardinals. I think that he's going to come out and he's going to have a very good outing. We saw last year before he got injured, Michael Waka was a very good pitcher. Throughout his career, he's actually been very good for the St. Louis Cardinals. I think that he just had a little bit of a command issue to start out the year. I think that that's something that he is going to get righted on. Walker Buehler, after getting just completely shelled in his first outing against the Arizona Diamondbacks, he looked much better in his second start against the Colorado Rockies. He was able to give up 3 hits and 2 walks over 5 innings against the Rockies as his team was able to get a convincing win, and that total stayed under. Dodgers so far this year, they have been hitting the ball, and they've been hitting the ball hard. Cody Bellinger hitting over 400. He's got 7 home runs and 19 RBI as of Wednesday evening. He's been doing a terrific job for this team. You just take a look up and down the lineup. You've got so many guys who are doing a good job of hitting. Justin Turner, Max Muncy, Verdugo has really been a godsend for the Dodgers. He's hitting over 300. Austin Barnes doing a terrific job at the catcher spot. And for the St. Louis Cardinals, you've got some bats out there that are a little bit sleepy. Paul Goldschmidt entered into Wednesday's action with 6 home runs, but he's hitting right around 200. Matt Carpenter has been off to a little bit of a slump so far this year. Yadier Molina seems to be coming around with the bat, but Marcell Ozuna and Dexter Fowler have not gotten things going, and Harrison Bader in a little bit of a slump as well. For the Dodgers, though, I do think that they're going to be neutralized a little bit by Michael Waka, so for that reason, I am on this total under, and I have locked in under 8 at the minus 105 juice. But I actually do think that with the Dodgers having a couple struggling arms out there in the bullpen, I do like the way that Caleb Ferguson and Baez are able to give them some good innings, but I do think that they're going to be able to get a run or two off of Walker Buehler, and then I think they get into the bullpen and they're able to get something like a 4-2 win in this spot. So for that reason, I'm going to be taking the plus price here with the St. Louis Cardinals. Right now waiting for a little bit of a better number there, but I have already locked in the total under. 9:05, 9:06 on the betting rotation. It is the New York Mets in Atlanta to face off against the Braves. The Bravos send out their Kevin Gausman, and for the New York Mets, Steven Matz. Total on this game is 8.5. That total is shaded over. for -120 on the over. The under is even, and this number is pretty stagnant across the board. If you like the Atlanta Braves, you're laying -120. If you like the Mets, it is a +110 price. I actually think that this spot is a little bit favorable for Atlanta because their game against the Colorado Rockies got rained out, so they were able to get a little bit of extra R&R in that regard. And Kevin Gausman, even though he missed a lot of spring training and everything like that because he was on the injured list, he wound up missing his start or two as a result. He looked very good in his first start of the year. He had a scoreless outing in that one, so I really like what he's bringing to the table in that regard. So I do think that there is some value on Gausman. Meanwhile, you take a look at the other end, Steven Matz. He's had a pretty decent start to the year so far. He hasn't gotten a decision in any of his starts, but he's got an ERA below 1. And we know that with the New York Mets, their bats are doing much better this year than they have in past years. Pete Alonso starts out the year with 5 home run and 14 RBI going into Wednesday's action. Robinson Cano has not really come around for this team, but Wilson Ramos at the catcher spot has been absolutely sensational. J.D. Davis has been okay in the middle of the lineup. He hasn't necessarily been lighting the world on fire, but at the same time, he's been giving this team a batting average just below 300. Rosario starting to step up as well. Jeff McNeil, a little bit of a Swiss Army knife. He does a little bit of everything, and Michael Conforto doing a really great job of being able to get on for this team. But I do think that the Mets are going to come back to earth a little bit with their bats, especially with Brandon Nimmo not doing a good job of being able to get on at the top of the rotation. And then with the Atlanta Braves, I really do like the way that their bats are coming around as well. I thought that series against the Colorado Rockies is exactly what they needed to get right. Dansby Swanson has 4 home runs and 15 RBI so far this year. Freddie Freeman is hitting .400. You've got Ronald Acuna Jr., who seems to be coming around. He was able to hit a couple dingers in that series as well. Nick Markakis has picked it up with the bat after a couple slow games through the season as well. Josh Donaldson hasn't necessarily had it coming around, but Ozzie Albies doing a great job of being able to get on as well. So for that reason, I am on the Braves in this spot. Right now in wait-and-see mode on the number. I'm trying to see if I could get more of a 110 to -115, but I've already locked in the under of 8.5, and I was able to get even juice on that under. We move on to 907, 908 on the betting rotation. It is the Pittsburgh Pirates in Chicago to face off against the Cubs. Jose Quintana goes for the Cubs. Meanwhile, Joe Musgrove for the Pittsburgh Pirates. There is currently no total up on the board since this game is at Wrigley Field. That will not be posted until the morning, so check back on my Twitter page at @unit_D1 for that. And I am seeing the Pirates currently a +130 to +134 underdog. Meanwhile, if you like the Cubs, you're going to be laying anywhere between 142 and 145. Jose Quintana is just one of those guys in which he either gives you a terrific outing or he gives you a butt ugly outing. You just don't know what you're going to get from him game to game. I actually do think that Musgrove is a pretty good pitcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates. We saw him in his first outing of the year. He looked very strong there for the year. He's 1-0. He has not given up a run so far. With the Pittsburgh Pirates, their bats have not really gotten going. Adam Frazier at the top of the lineup, hitting a little bit over 300 so far this year. Going into Wednesday's action, Josh Bell had been hitting .275 with 2 home runs and 8 RBI. I like what he's providing for this team, but with the Pirates, Jung Oh Kang has not really gotten it going for this team. They've got a mismatch of players that are currently on the 10-day injured list. Jose Ozuna, Kyle Crick, he's a relief pitcher. Obviously, that doesn't affect the lineup, but Gregory Polanco is still out for this team as well. He is a very critical bat to this team. We've seen the Pirates be shut out of quite a few games so far this year, but they've hung some 5 spots as well, so I think that it's really interesting. I think that they get to Quintana and this just awful bullpen that's towards the bottom of the majors enough to be able to put up some runs and be able to get a win. The total on this one, it really depends on the number that is chucked out there along with the wind. We saw the game on Wednesday have a low total opening up at 7 because the wind was blowing in. If you're getting a total of like 7 or something like that, even if the wind is blowing in a little bit, I'd probably look at taking it over. If it's one of those where it's 8+, I'll probably be looking at the under just because the bats of the Pirates aren't necessarily the best. And the Cubs themselves, they do have some guys that are able to rake. Ben Zobrist at the top of the lineup has been doing a great job of being able to get on. Going into Wednesday's action, Javi Baez had 4 home run, 9 RBI. We all know what Anthony Rizzo's able to do. Daniel Descalso has been off to a very nice start so far this year. Kyle Schwarber seems to be coming back to earth a little bit, but he's a solid bat along with Wilson Contreras. So I do think that it's really interesting. This total is really going to vary, but in this spot, I do have to take the plus price with the Pittsburgh Pirates currently in wait-and-see mode on that plus price. I think that this could climb up to 140 or higher. 9:09, 9:10 on the betting rotation. It is the Arizona Diamondbacks, and they are at home facing off against the San Diego Padres. For the Padres, it is something by the name of Pedro Avila going for them, who is making his major league debut, and it is Zach Godley on the hill for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Avila was not announced as a starter until Wednesday afternoon/evening, depending on what time zone you're in, so there's currently no number up on this game. I can tell you right now, I'm probably going to be taking a look at an over. Avila has never pitched past AA baseball for the San Diego Padres. I will say that in his stops in the minors, he's been very good. He's got a lifetime ERA right around 3.5. He does a very good job of being able to get strikeouts. In a career, I would say 440 innings, he has somewhere around 520 to 525 strikeouts, so he has electric stuff. He's got a great fastball, but you got to think, first start in the majors, maybe the Arizona Diamondbacks are thrown off a little bit, but we just heard from Mike Ferrin how good this lineup has been. Dean Peralta has been absolutely sensational at the middle of the lineup for this team. You've got Adam Jones, who is completely raking for them. Ketel Marte is coming through for this lineup as well. You just take a look up and down the boulevard for the Arizona Diamondbacks. They've got a lot of guys that are mashing. Meanwhile, the San Diego Padres, they are traveling from San Francisco. You got to think that they're going to be on a little bit of short rest there. Obviously, this game is on the West Coast, so it's not necessarily a long road trip. And I do like what Hunter Renfroe is bringing to the table for the Padres this year. He's got 4 home runs, 7 RBI, hitting above 300. Manny Machado had a home run in that game yesterday against the San Francisco Giants. Will Myers is hitting above 300. So I do think that there's going to be quite a few runs, especially with Zach Godley not being the modicum of consistency for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's 1-1 so far this year with an ERA above 6.5. So I do think that runs are going to be aplenty in this game. So I'm probably going to look at this total over as long as the total is not something exceedingly high. And I'm probably going to take a look at the Diamondbacks. It really depends on the price. So I might look run line. I might look money line. This is one of those wait and see games. But as of right now, I'm leaning over and I'm leaning Arizona Diamondbacks. Can't give you a set play until I get a line on this game, though, and that'll be noted on my Twitter page in the morning once one becomes available. 9-11, 9-12 on the betting rotation. It is the Colorado Rockies, and they are in San Francisco to face the Giants. Jeff Samardzija goes for the Giants. John Gray for the Colorado Rockies. Total on this game is 7, and it is shaded heavily to the over. The over is minus 125. The under is plus 105. If you want to take a shot on the San Francisco Giants, you are going to be getting a plus 105 price. Meanwhile, if you want to lay it with the Rockies, that is minus 115. Neither of these pitchers are necessarily guys that are going to light the world on fire. I do feel like Jeff Samardzija is going to be a little bit better this year than he has in past years. He's been a little bit banged up, and just in general throughout his career, he's been a tough luck loser wherever he's gone. And the Colorado Rockies, let's face it, their lineup just has not been getting the job done. Trevor Story has 4 home runs and 9 RBI so far this year, but he's hitting only 209. I do like the way that Dahl has been able to hit 343. Nolan Arenado has not necessarily provided the power and the extra bases that we're used to seeing in past years. Charlie Blackmon has been solid towards the top of the lineup, but you've got guys like Tapia that are not coming through. Ian Desmond is hitting $150. Garrett Hampson is hitting 100. Fuentes at the first base spot is hitting 200. The list goes on and on and on. They've got a bunch of guys that are not coming through. And then for the San Francisco Giants, I think that they're starting to find something with Brandon Crawford. He's hitting nearly 300. Evan Longoria has been hitting below 200. You can't think that that's going to last. You got to think that Buster Posey is going to bust through. Brandon Belt has hit a trio of home runs, but he hasn't necessarily been hitting for average. But I do think that one thing that could jumpstart this lineup is the fact that they were able to get in a new first baseman in Tyler Austin that in his first couple games has been hitting 333. I think that he's going to be a guy that can really step up and give this team some hits, and I do think that Eric Kratz is going to be able to step up as well. I do think that this is a total that's going to go over because the Rockies' bullpen has been a little bit shaky, and I just don't have a lot of faith in John Gray. Throughout his career, he hasn't necessarily been the best pitcher, and he's got an ERA that isn't necessarily sterling so far this year at 5.68. So I think that the Giants get to him. I'm going to take the plus price here with the San Francisco Giants, and I'm going to take this total over. Right now, waiting on a little bit of better juice. I was able to find 7.5 on the over. Currently across Vegas, I'm seeing only 7s. So I would advise you to wait for a 7.5 on a little bit more favorable juice, and I'm going to take the Giants as well, trying to see if I could get more of a plus 110 or plus 115. 9-13, 9-14 on the betting rotation. It is the A's still in Baltimore to face off against the Orioles. Aaron Brooks, no, not the former NFL quarterback, goes for the Oakland A's. Dylan Bundy for the Baltimore Orioles. It is the A's between a minus 155 and minus 165 favorite. That means that if you like the Orioles, well, you're going to be getting between plus 145 and plus 150. Total on this one I'm seeing is ranging between 9.5 and 10. If you like the 9.5, you're going to be getting over juice of between minus 110, minus 120. If you like the under, that is between minus 110 and even money. And the lone 10 out there is an under of minus 115 and the over of minus 105. This is one in which I do think that Dylan Bundy, for a change, is going to give us a decent outing. Dylan Bundy actually has a little bit of upside. He hasn't necessarily put together, but I do think that he can go 6 innings, give up 3 runs, something in that neighborhood. Believe me, I'm not selling you on the Baltimore Orioles in this game. I am on the A's run line. Currently, with the A's run line, I'm seeing this vary a little bit, but I am certainly going to be on that. But with that said, I do think that Dylan Bundy actually gives them a decent start. I like what I've seen out of Aaron Brooks as well. For the year, he's 1-1 with an ERA right around 4, so he's been very decent. And with the A's, their bullpen has been very good so far this year. I know that they let up a couple runs against the Baltimore Orioles in these couple games of the series, especially that game on Monday in which the Orioles were able to get a double-digit amount of runs. But with that said, I do think that the A's are going to be able to hold down the fort, so I'm going to be on this total under. I was able to get an under 10 at the juice of minus 110, so I am right now all locked in on that one. And with the A's run line, I'm currently seeing minus 110. I'm in wait-and-see mode trying to see if I can get more even juice or minus 105, but I'm certainly going to be on the A's in this spot. The A's just have so many guys that are raking right now. Chris Davis hit a pair of dingers against the Baltimore Orioles yesterday. You had Matt Chapman, who was able to go yard as well. In that game, you saw Chad Pinder being able to hit a home run in the second inning as well. And then you add in there Marcus Semien hitting above 300 so far this year. Jurickson Profar was able to hit a home run as well. I mean, everyone was hitting a home run, so maybe the A's will be a little bit tired after rounding the bases so many times. But I do think the A's going to be able to win this one, convincingly. And for the Orioles, they've got a couple guys that are mashing. Trey Boom Boom Mancini was able to hit a home run yesterday against the A's. He's got 6 home runs on the year. I do like the way that Rio Ruiz is able to give this team a little bit of pop as well. Jonathan VR does a good job of being able to get on base. We all know what Chris Davis, the Chris with a C, not Chris with a K, brings to the table. He currently has as many hits as Greg Peterson right now. Obviously, that is not a redeeming quality. Jesus Sucre has been coming around with the bat a little bit as well. I do think that there's going to be a couple runs by each team, but I think the A's are going to be a little bit more limited on this day in regards to their offense. So for that reason, I'm playing this total under, but I'm on the A's run line. Already locked in the under. Right now, in wait-and-see mode on the A's run line. 9:15, 9:16 on the betting rotation. It is the Detroit Tigers playing host to the Cleveland Indians. Shane, don't call me Bieber Fever, goes for the Cleveland Indians. Meanwhile, Spencer Turnbull for the Detroit Tigers. Total on this game is 8, shaded under. The under is between minus 115 and minus 120, and the over is between minus 105 and even juice. If you like the Cleveland Indians, you're going to be laying between minus 130 and minus 135. For the Detroit Tigers, you're going to be getting a plus price of between 120 and 125. And I don't understand why there's so much value on Spencer Turnbull. I've been noticing the totals on his starts have been very, very low. I've also been noticing that he's not as much of a plus dog as he should be. He had a very decent outing the last time he took the mound. He was able to give up 3 runs on 6 hits against the Kansas City Royals, but that's the Kansas City Royals. Shane Bieber, he doesn't necessarily have electrifying stuff. He's not a guy that's going to get a whole bunch of swings and misses, but he does a good job of being able to limit hard contact, and Detroit is a little bit more of a pitcher's ballpark. But I do think that the Cleveland Indians are going to have a very good run of things. We saw Hanley Ramirez being able to get an RBI double yesterday for this team. Carlos Santana is hitting just below 400. You got to think that Jose Ramirez is going to be able to bust out at some point. He's hitting for the year below 200. We're seeing a bunch of guys really struggling for the Cleveland Indians, but Leonis Martin seems to be coming around at the top of the lineup. He was able to hit a home run a couple days ago, and also out there in the outfield being able to give this team a little bit of something is Taylor Naquin. He's hitting nearly 300 as well. I like the way that his bat is coming around, though Greg Allen, he is just absolutely brutal. He's hitting .048 for the year, so there are some sleepy bats for the Cleveland Indians, and I do think the Tigers are going to be able to score a couple runs. Nick Castellanos is hitting .255 for the year. Miguel Cabrera is really starting to find his form. Nico Goodrum was able to go deep for his first home run of the year yesterday. And then at the catcher spot, they were able to get a home run out of John Hicks, his first of the year yesterday as well. So I do feel like the bats are starting to come around for both these teams. For that reason, I am going to look to this total over. Got to think that Christian Stewart is going to start to swing a little bit of a better bat for the Detroit Tigers as well. And let's face it, neither of these pitchers, though I just mentioned how good Shane Bieber is at being able to limit hard contact, are guys that you necessarily are going to note as being world beaters. So for that reason, already locked in the over. And right now, in wait-and-see mode on the Indians. I noticed that there's been a lot of money coming in on the Detroit Tigers. So for that reason, I am in wait-and-see mode on this price with the Indians, but have already locked in the over on this game. 9:17, 9:18 on the betting rotation. The Seattle Mariners are still in Kansas City to face off against the Royals. It is Mike Leake going on the hill for the Mariners. Meanwhile, the Royals trot out there one Jorge Lopez, with the total on this game being 10, shaded to the under in some spots. Under is between minus 110 and minus 120 juice. The over is between even money and minus 110. If you want to take a shot on the Royals, you are getting a plus price of between plus 122 and plus 125. Meanwhile, for the Seattle Mariners, you're going to be laying between minus 132 and minus 135. Lopez has actually had a decent start to the year so far this year. He has a 4 ERA. Last year, he was just absolutely awful as a starter. He was giving up an ERA over 6. He didn't do the worst job of walking guys, but he's not a guy that has necessarily wipeout stuff. He doesn't generate a lot of strikeouts. He lends himself to a lot of contact as well. And with the Seattle Mariners, we know that they have been taking the ball, and they have been taking the ball deep so far this year. Jay Bruce entered into Wednesday's action with 7 home runs. Domingo Santana had 19 RBI. Tim Beckham is hitting nearly 400 for the year. You've got so many guys up and down this roster that are just raking right now. Daniel Vogelbach has been going deep for this team. Ryan Healy has a lot of power. Malik Smith isn't hitting for average, but he's doing a good job of being able to get on base at the top of the lineup. D. Gordon is hitting over 300. Omar Narvaez provides something at the catcher spot. Edwin Encarnacion is hitting as well. And then for the Kansas City Royals, got a couple guys who are able to get on in Whit Merrifield, Billy Hamilton and company, but you just have to question what you're going to get at the bottom of the lineup because guys like Hunter Dozier are not getting the job done. Another guy that's hitting below 200 in Chris Owings. He does not leave a whole lot to be had. Ryan O'Hearn and Frank Swindle, whoever they have in the infield, they're not getting the job done. You've got Mondesi, who does a good job of being able to get on base, but Jorge Soler at the middle of the lineup doesn't do much for me either. This is a spot where I really do have to look at the Seattle Mariners run line. Mike Leake isn't necessarily a great starter, but at the same time, he's certainly not bad as well. So for that reason, I'm going to look at this total under actually because I do think that Mike Leake is going to have a good start against a Royals lineup that, let's face it, is not very good. And I'm looking at the Mariners run line in the spot. I'm right now seeing a plus price of plus 110, trying to see if I can get a little bit better because I'm noticing money, for some reason, unbeknownst to me, coming in on the Kansas City Royals. And the final game on the card, 9:19, 9:20 on the betting rotation. It is the Boston Red Sox playing host to the Toronto Blue Jays. It is Nate Eovaldi towing the rubber for the Boston Red Sox. Meanwhile, Aaron Sanchez goes for the Toronto Blue Jays. Total on this game is 9. The 9 is between minus 110 and minus 115 juice on the under. The over is between minus 110 and minus 105. If you want to take a shot on the Blue Jays, you're getting anywhere between a plus 164 and plus 170 price. If you want to lay it with the Boston Red Sox, that is between minus 178 and minus 185. There's just no value with the Boston Red Sox right now. I have to fade them until these prices start coming down and the books start to catch up with them because the Boston Red Sox enter into this game 3-9. They're looking to avoid a sweep at the hands of the Jays. It's not going well for them. And Aaron Sanchez, actually a pretty darn good pitcher for this team. He's 1-1 with a 1.64 ERA. Not necessarily a guy that's going to light the world on fire in regards to strikeouts, and he had his walk problems last year, but he seems to be doing a much better job with his command. I really like what I'm seeing out of him because in 2 starts so far, he does have 5 walks, but he's limiting that contact. Hitters are only hitting 205 off of him, and I do think that the Boston Red Sox are going to do a little bit of a better job of being able to get to him. Mitch Moreland enters into this game with 4 home runs. JD Martinez is hitting 326. We all know what Xander Bogaerts, Mookie Betts and company can do, but Jackie Bradley Jr. has been in a little bit of a slump to start the year. And with the Toronto Blue Jays, they've got a couple sleepy bats themselves, which, if you do notice, I do like saying that phrase, sleepy bats. Freddie Galvis is hitting 333. He's been terrific for this team, but Justin Smoke is currently banged up for this team. He's been in and out of the lineup all year long. I will say that perhaps the stealing of home by Lourdes Gurriel gets him going. He had a nice 2-hit game a couple days ago. Randall Grichuk seems to be getting something going for this team as well. He's been not necessarily hitting for the power that we've seen in past years, but I do think that he's a guy that's going to be able to get jump-started. McKinney at the outfield spot has been doing a little bit of a better job of hitting as well, so I feel like the Toronto Blue Jays bats are starting to come around. With that said, this is a total that I have to take under, trying to see if I can get a little bit more favorable juice than just a straight up -110 since this game is in Fenway Park. So don't see either of these teams really being able to light the world on fire in regards to offense. But I'm right now going to take a shot on the Blue Jays as well. Public money typically comes in on the Boston Red Sox. So currently in wait and see mode as to the exact plus price that I'm going to get there. And that will do it for a Thursday edition of MLB Overtime Betting. A big thanks to our good friend Mike Ferrin out there with the Arizona Diamondbacks and SiriusXM's MLB coverage for joining me in the second segment. And if you ever have a question for this fine podcast, feel free to tweet it in at @unit_81. If you like what you're hearing, you can subscribe on Apple iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. I will be with you guys every single day on this podcast, breaking down every side and total in the MLB. And I plan on talking at you guys tomorrow after what I hope to be a successful and profitable Thursday. Thank you so much for tuning in.